Welcome to the Three Tynes podcast. Today's guest is Fiona Lander, composer, singer, multi-instrumentalist, jazz fan and teacher. Based in the North Tyne Valley, Fiona is one half of the duo Landermason, performing traditional and contemporary folk in jazz, blues, classical and other styles. She also works with choirs, notably the Northumberland-based Dark Sky Voices, and composes music for schools to perform and for commissions. She is a freelance music teacher and, in what time left she has for leisure, she co-organises the annual Bellingham All Acoustic Festival, better known as BAAFest. In this episode, Fiona recounts how her early talent for music and performance led to her current diverse career and her passion for composing. The episode includes 3 songs. Make Our Future Bright was commissioned for performance at the Festival of Hope. It is not available online. Born to Sing is from the 2021 album Landermason with Dark Sky Voices. It's available from Landermason's Bandcamp page. Amazing Grace is sung by Dark Sky Voices and is available on YouTube.
Every minute of the day, every day of the week, people say, people do, people don't. Every hour of the day, every day of the year, people could, people should, people won't. So if we make choices showing we care, work together to make it fair, every minute of the day, every day of the week, we'll try. Let's fill this place with good news stories, make people smile every once in a while. We can make our future a brighter place. We can make our future bright.
Fiona Lander, thank you for talking to Three Tynes podcast.
You're welcome.
I've been reading about you today on the internet. You are, and I had to write this down, you are a multi-instrumentalist, composer, teacher, a co-organiser of BAAFest, a choir leader, a half of Landermason with Paul, and a performer. So how would you describe your music to somebody who hasn't heard it?
Varied, I think, is the answer to that. It depends what it is I'm writing for.
Yeah.
So if I've got my Landermason head on, then it's going to come across as something quite differently to something that I'm writing for a 4-part choir. I think that's the answer to that one. I love writing in all different styles. Most genres interest me. So I think it depends what it is that the outcome is for. But the music, for somebody who's never heard, okay, so I would say if it was Landermason, it's generally going to be something that is interesting and complex to a certain extent, well thought out, well crafted, with lots of different instrumental ideas and harmonies, possibly folky, possibly jazzy, possibly classical. So can you see how it could be all sorts of different things? We get bored very easily. That's why we mix it up. So a Landermason album is a bit of everything. It might be a jig in a kind of Celtic style, or it might be a Tyne Valley song that's been arranged in a very unusual way, or it might just be a heartfelt ballad with lovely harmonies and featuring our instrumental differences, which Paul and I have many different things between us. That we can
And how did you come by this facility for composition?
I studied straight from school. I went to Colchester Institute and did a music degree. But before that, I was already really interested in arranging nursery rhymes for little choral groups and writing little bits and pieces for piano. And so I suppose the creation side of things has come right from when I was a sort of teenager. And there's the instrumental skills I acquired very early on, very supportive parents. So started, like many people, playing the recorder and maybe the piano, and then I moved on to the clarinet, which became my big love. That was my main instrument when I went to study music in Colchester. So the piano and the clarinet became my real kind of feature instruments. And then got myself a saxophone so that I could play in jazz bands. And yeah, so that all happened when I was in the sixth form. And when I was at college, I realised I probably wasn't good enough to be an orchestral player. That soon became obvious. Learning the clarinet was probably the wrong thing to do. Because at that time, many years ago, that was an instrument that a lot of people played. Yeah, so I moved into sort of homing in on the composition and the arranging side.
Yeah, and you've always been a performer from the sound of it.
Yeah. I mean, from being a child, I would sing in the local amateur dramatic society and in the school choir, and I'd perform at the Tyne Festival on my recorder or in a piano duet or do something on my clarinet or piano. Yeah, so had lots of opportunities and just took them all, and yeah, I must have enjoyed the performance element. My very first performance to an audience, I believe, was in my dad's jazz band in the line of Corbridge when it used to be at the end of the bridge, and I did a little clarinet solo, and I must have got a big buzz out of that because I've never really gone back.
How old were you then?
I was 11.
11, wow.
Yeah, just kept looking for more, I suppose. Anything that came my way, I'd grab it. But I've always been never really been a master of one thing. I've always enjoyed variety and lots of different experiences. So the singing, the accompanying people. When I was in the sixth form, my first job was to accompany the dance school in Hexham, in the Moot Hall, on the top floor. And that was just the best experience I could have had from a sight reading point of view. So I've got a very strong left hand because you just got to keep going and you've got to keep the beat going, mistakes and all. So that was terrific.
So was that outlook instrumental in leading to you becoming a teacher?
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. Mum was a teacher, head teacher, so I guess I've had that sort of in my blood, if you like. And I didn't really want to be a teacher to start with, but it's a great profession, and because I had skills in lots of different areas, it seemed the right thing to do. Loved being with people. The composing and arranging thing was really useful when I was a secondary school teacher, because once you've got your own little choir or your own little group of instrumentalists, you just manufacture things that work for that group and then they love it, rather than forcing the issue. So I had to have that sort of flexibility to create music for those specific students, whatever year group they were, was a really lovely skill. And young people like creating things, so to have that confidence from a composing and arranging sort of side, I feel like that brought a lot of joy to a lot of students, I remember. And hopefully still is now.
Yeah. And what are you doing now with schools?
What am I doing now? I am teaching in just the one school, and that's Queen Elizabeth High School at the moment. 20 years ago I went self-employed and started work there as part of the Northumberland Music Service. And then 10 years ago, I came out of that and just continued doing lessons with some adults privately and also in Queen Elizabeth High School, because it's part of me, that school. It's where I went, and yeah, I can't believe I've been there 20 years. Perhaps I should be thinking of moving on somewhere else or retiring.
So you mentioned the joy that you find in inspiring students.
Yes.
How do you go about bringing students out of their shells if you think there's an inkling of music interest there in a student when they're in school, but they're maybe a bit reluctant to come forward? How do you go about encouraging them to express themselves a bit more in music?
Generally, just get rid of the piece of paper in front of them and do some fun warm-ups, oral tests and little echo ideas, and then the improvisation side, because I love jazz, I teach jazz. That has incredible effects on all sorts of students who didn't even think they liked jazz or didn't think they could improvise. So that first lesson I have where I say, do you want to learn how to improvise? And they go, well, I'd like to try it, but I don't think it'll be very good, or I've never done it, it scares me. 9 times out of 10, they're going to come up with something that makes them smile, and that's an incredible confidence booster. it doesn't have to be very long, it doesn't have to be complicated, but if I jam along on the piano and they do something on an instrument or with their voice, it's just very, very quick, instant gratification. That's a great confidence booster.
From your point of view, how does the sort of academic approach to musical development compare with responding to what an individual wants to do and developing some innate ambition that they have? Would you favour somebody going down the academic route and doing their grades and so on as a way of marking their progress, or do you see students who have an affinity for an instrument but no interest in doing the exams and all that kind of stuff?
I teach both. In the first lesson I have with them, I ask that question. It doesn't always stay that way, but they generally have an idea whether they want to do it for fun and the love of just learning the instrument, or whether they want to do grades. And sometimes it starts with one and goes the other way. Some students, some people need to have a target to work towards, and they're much better with that. I was personally myself, so I work towards an exam or some kind of performance each year, and it just brings things together, but it's not for everyone. No, I get that, and I teach a lot of people who aren't interested in grades. Yeah. But there's a system now where it's a little less. You can do a much more relaxed exam, if that's the word. I don't know if that actually is the right description. But there are different types of exams now on offer, so there's much more variety, flexibility, which is good.
And do you encourage students to learn notation, because that's something that puts some people off?
I would always encourage it. Because I think it's a really good skill. Yes, people who can't read do find themselves sometimes in more tricky situations. If, for example, they're in an ensemble, so I have a jazz band, 9 out of 10 of them are able to read music or are learning how to, and then maybe the one that is reluctant or just finds it so hard, he finds a way of doing it, but it's much slower. Yeah. So I would always encourage it.
Is there a secret way into learning notation?
Well, there's different types of notation, I suppose. I don't use graphic scores, but that's one way of doing it. And that's lovely with a class, that's good fun. Piano's the hardest one because it's a double stave and there's treble and bass. From that point of view, I would always try and do a melody and teach keyboard people or piano players how to read chord symbols, because that's a much simpler way of doing it than bass clef. But again, it depends on the student, and I don't want to use that as a cop out, but it's a way of keeping people interested if I can see they're struggling, because it's just a joy to be able to play something with a melody and an accompaniment with two hands. Yeah. And whether you do it formally with a bass clef part or whether you just busk your own accompaniment, I think it's great to be able to do both. So there's no easy way. Start young.
How young would that be? Mozart was what, 4?
Yeah, I started I think when I was 6 or 7, but I have just taken on a 5-year-old, and that's doable but challenging. They need lots and lots of different games and fun things, but it's doable. So,
and there's the physical challenge of having to use large instruments too, I think.
Yeah, the physical side, absolutely. Yes, their fingers are so weak they can't press the little finger very hard, or it's just going to be maybe 1 or 2 fingers to start with.
That rules out stringed instruments until they're a bit older, I imagine.
Yeah, well, full-size ones for sure.
Choirs. You do a lot of work with choirs. Could you describe that for me?
I do. Singing is a passion of mine, always has been. And I've always sung in or been part of a choir, for the whole of my life. I didn't think I would end up writing so much for choirs, but it's become one of my regular incomes now, so I'm loving it. So I have the school choir in Hexham High School and one other choir at the moment, which is Dark Sky Voices, and that's an adult ladies choir based in Tynedale, and that's a weekly thing. 2 very different choirs, but I'm also, aside from them, I'm also being asked to do sort of guest appearances for other choir groups. So the Caedemon Choir have asked me to do something next year, and this Durham Scratch Choir, I'm going back to work with in January on their residential. I love that kind of thing, dipping into community choirs, working with adult choirs. whatever age, it's great fun. It's great fun. The more of that, the better.
I was listening to your album with Dark Sky this morning, the one that you issued in 2021.
Yeah.
And I thought, this is interesting. This is not what the ordinary person would expect a choir to be like. You don't sound like if somebody said choir, you think choral music, long sustained notes, that kind of thing. But actually, it struck me, this is a bit like prog rock.
Oh.
I thought some of the phrasing and the and the different use of melodies and even time signatures within the same song. I thought, this reminds me of prog rock.
Okay.
So where do you get your inspiration from for Dark Sky?
I think the prog rock thing has probably come from Paul in many ways. With him being older, and you're not the first person to have mentioned that genre with our music. From the choir point of view, on that album particularly, I can only think that because Paul and I have done so much recording over the years, and I've done most of the harmony and backing vocals. We've done some together, but I've done quite a lot of that to fill out the sound. So I've treated the choir arrangements, which took me a long time, but I thoroughly enjoyed doing. I kind of treated them almost like backing singers rather than a choir. So 2-3 part harmonies, maybe 4, I don't know. And then they came up to record sort of individually because it was during lockdown, but maybe 3 on a part recording wise, so there's this big chunk of sound, but like backing singers. So I think that's how I would describe that. And they loved it. And then when we've done it live in gigs, it's been more like Landermason with a huge number of backing singers, which does create an unusual sound, that you're not usually associating with A, a choir, and B, a duo. So, we'd love to do more of that, but it's a big effort on everybody's part. So it was a bit of a one-off that. I think we will do more stuff eventually. But it brought something different to Landermason, and it was certainly something very exciting for the choir to be part of, the recording and the live stuff. Yeah.
Do you believe the power that music brings? Can you see the joy in those that sing? Sing out loud and make it clear. We want the world to hear our voices. Sing out loud and make it clear. We're born to sing. That we bring to you. Could this be the way to get you through? Sing out loud and make it clear. We want the world to hear our voices. Sing out loud and make it clear. We're born to sing. Sing it loud, sing it clear. Sing it loud, sing it clear. Sing it loud, sing it clear. Can you feel your spirits rising high? Is it real, this feeling deep inside? Sing out loud and make it clear. We want the world to hear our voices. Sing out loud and make it clear. Do do do, dooby 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 doo. Do do do, dooby doo 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 do do do, dooby 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 doo. Do dooby doo 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 doo. Do do do, dooby 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 doo. Do do do, dooby doo 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 do do do. want the world to hear our voices. Sing out loud and make it clear, we're born to sing. Sing out loud and make it clear, we're born to sing. Sing out loud and make it clear, we're born to sing. Sing out loud and make it clear, we're born to sing. Sing out loud and make it clear, we're born to sing. Sing out loud and make it clear, we're born to sing. Sing out loud and make it clear, we're born to sing.
So another thing that struck me about the recording is how tight the choir was. Now, the more voices you have, the more inclined they are to kind of spread out in the in time spectrum. But everybody was spot on.
Well, that's probably because of what I've just explained, where they all came up individually.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't done in a sort of a live situation. So there would have been a little bit of an element of probably just cleaning that up. Yeah, of course, because we've got to have a professional standard for our recordings.
And the third striking thing about the album, I thought, is the quality of production.
Oh, well, there you go.
Because and I know you've got a home studio.
Yeah.
But it's a very high quality recording, that one. And
Yeah.
How do you manage that?
Well, I think that's the last recording we did, and we've upgraded equipment constantly over the last 20 years since we've been up here. So decent mics.
By which you mean what kind of mic are we talking about?
Oh,
there
we've
for
got
conversating?
I think it's no, the Shure and the Sennheisers are what we go out live. So it'd be Neumann. I think we're using a Neumann. Paul's the techie one. I think the main vocal mic's that, and he spends hours over his guitar recordings. I just usually get out of the way when Paul does the guitar recordings. He's better on his own for that. But both of us spend a lot of time doing editing, so I would have probably worked on the vocals and he would have worked on the instrumental side. But yeah, just really good equipment and time. A lot of time. With having a home studio, you always put more time into it than you would normally. Yeah.
Well, it shows.
Good, thank you.
It shows, yes.
Thank you.
I wanted to talk to you about two organisations that you work with in relation, I think it's schools and young people. One is called Sing Up.
Oh, yeah.
Can you tell me a bit about Sing Up?
Well, actually, I was just looking at my sort of timeline of experience, just with a view to you coming. 10 years ago, I launched my website for my composing, and that came as a result of sending one of my songs to Sing Up, which is an online educational resource for schools and colleges and churches and any organisations that want to download high quality products. So somebody in Hexham, a friend of mine, recommended that I sent a piece called Winter Carol, which I'd written. She suggested I sent it to them because she thought it would be a really suitable one for schools to enjoy singing. So I did, and they loved it, and it's become a bit of a firm favourite. So that is how I got into Sing Up. I already had created the recording of it with some young singers from Northumberland schools. So I made a charity recording which raised funds for a local, it was the Percy Headley Foundation in Newcastle. Yeah. So we did various performances all across the Tyne Valley. I think it was possibly after I'd sent it to Sing Up. It was a big success anyway, and people are still enjoying singing it all around the world. But Sing Up was so impressed with it, and I was a new composer for them. They asked me to then write something for their Easter songs. So I wrote a new piece, a commission for Easter, and then another one came in for International Peace Day. So I got commissioned to write that. And then the third commission they asked me to do was a new Christmas carol. So I did an arrangement of We Wish You Merry Christmas, but in a jazz sort of style. So that's my connection with Sing Up, and I'm very grateful to the lady who suggested I got in touch with them, because that's been a very, very good connection. Yeah, and a lovely sort of platform for me to start building confidence in my writing.
And who are Sing Up's clients?
Well, you do have to be a member, so schools all around the world, and churches and colleges and universities. So anybody can be, I guess, a part of it if they've got a choir.
So it's a resource that they would use for material for their own concerts and stuff like that?
Yes, and teaching in schools.
Yeah,
essentially. primary or secondary.
Yeah. And the second one that I came across that I wasn't familiar with is Music Partnership North.
Well, Music Partnership North are what were originally the Northumberland County Music Service.
Right, which I have heard of.
Yes. Yeah. So that's one thing led to another. So
Mm-hmm.
Music Partnership North is now what that was. So I'm not actually working for them now, but I did come out of that 10 years ago. So rather than working for them in schools, I'm just self-employed because I didn't want to do so much work in different schools around the Northeast. I wanted to just do more composing and arranging, work with Paul, do recordings, and just keep a little bit of teaching going. Yeah. So that's what I'm doing is a sort of a mixture of all those things. Yeah.
What is your composing process? Do you have one?
If somebody asks me to write something, I'll get straight on with it. Do
you start with the piano, for example?
Oh, I see what you mean. Words, generally. Mm-hmm. I've done a series since lockdown, and since lockdown or during lockdown and continuing on, I was introduced to the poetry of Christina Rossetti by a friend who I was walking with, and I've now, the words of her poetry are just so lend themselves so well to music, and they're rhyming or brilliantly constructed. So it was kind of easy to put them into rhythms, and so that's the process generally is find a good set of lyrics or write your own, and then go through the words and work out what's the best rhythm that they're going to kind of come out with. So you start thinking about time signatures. Is it going to have a nice sort of lilting sort of 6/8 feel, or is it going to have a bit more of a beat to it? I don't know. So that's the process, and then tunes start to come from there. Chords will probably be the next thing.
So you don't have a bit on your phone where you're humming in melodies that you.
I have loads of little snippets. Yeah. So if I'm driving along or out on a walk and I just come up with, it's usually words, so it wouldn't just be music. I'll record it. Yeah, very much so.
That's interesting you say that, because from your background, you're a very accomplished musician and composer. Yeah. I would naturally guess that it was the melodies that came to you.
I find melody writing easy once I've got the words. Absolutely. There's another lovely connection I have with the two ladies who live in the Northeast who are both Holocaust family survivors, sisters, and for the last 5 or 6 years they've each year sent me in the summer holidays the lyrics of a song that they've written. I've written the song. They've sent me the lyrics, and then with those words, which are so powerful because they've always been based on the Holocaust memorial theme for the year, then they've said, over to you, now make a song out of it. And I find that relatively simple to do once I've got the words in front of me. So I'd just go through the rhythmic thing, sit at the piano, and then just see what comes out.
So it's an intuitive process. You don't draw on your music education and skills to think, this is something that would be best in C# minor.
No. And most of the music I'm writing from that point of view is for children, so it's a limited range anyway. So that helps speed the process up. Yeah. But I do write instrumental music as well. In fact, I'd like to do more of that. I've written several solo piano pieces, music for my students for clarinet and saxophone, which feels like a long time since I've done anything like that, and I'd like more time to do that because quite a lot of people say, why don't you write more piano music and publish a book? It's just time. And that doesn't involve any words, so it's so
composition, unless it's for a specific commission, is something that you need space for.
Absolutely.
So what music do you listen to by way of relaxation, if you do? Lots of musicians don't have time, but
I love the radio, so when I'm driving to work, it'll generally be Classic FM, Radio 3, so I can get a nice hit of Baroque music or something in the mornings. So I love Baroque music, absolutely love it. But I'm up for all sorts. I suppose I'm interested in anything choral, whether it's weird, wonderful, old, new, great, anything like that. Always interested in listening to new music that people send me. But to relax in the evening, I would usually go for jazz or some really great, songwriters that Paul and I have got to know over the years, and people that we really respect. Absolutely, we've got our favourites, and I'm not going to name names, but but jazz, I would always go to people like Joni Mitchell, Leanne Carroll. I like a bit of Diana Krall, Oscar Peterson, and those kind of influences. Yeah.
Now, we've mentioned Landermason, your duo with Paul, and it's your kind of public face on the folk circuit. And it's how I first came across you and
Right.
Paul. I saw you performing at BAAFest some time ago.
Yeah.
Now, Landermason is an interesting project, isn't it? Because it is a proper meeting of Paul's rock background and your classical jazz approach.
It is.
Would you describe the music in that way?
Yes, I certainly would. And I think the folk element is something that came for two reasons. Before we moved back up to the northeast, I was in an electric folk band called Trunkles, which has been going since the sort of early 70s with various different lineups. And for that, I was generally the keyboard player doing chords and when we did ceilidhs and weddings and stuff. But I also sang, and I bought a cheap penny whistle because it felt like I needed to be able to play a few jiggy things. So that's where that came. And then when we moved back up to the northeast, of course, we're just swamped in tradition up here with all of those fantastic northeast songs, and that was one of the first things we did was an arrangement of When the Boat Comes In, amongst other things.
Establishing your credentials there.
Yeah. So coming back to the northeast brought the folk thing alive, and then the whistles. I mean, we don't do violins or accordions or anything traditional from that sense, but we did look into the books of the northeast trad stuff and thought, this might be fun to make it a bit different. The new arrangements kind of came out of that, and it just felt really great. We had fun. We had a lot of fun.
And you recently did a tour of Northumberland and a bit of Cumbria and a bit of Cambridgeshire. So I'd like to ask you, what's your impression of the state of performing musicians in our part of the world at the moment? Is it a thriving scene? Is it being challenged by some of the things we read about, of venues closing down?
Definitely. Definitely. We're all saying the same thing. Well, venues are closing. That's the first thing, isn't it? There's so many places just aren't happening. Festivals are on the decline, the small ones. So the places to play are few and far between. There are a few new ones coming up, which is great, and there's people who are passionate to keep it going, and my goodness, what would we do without them? Yeah. And quite a lot of the time it's musicians themselves who are creating those opportunities, like Paul and I have done with BAAFest. But for example, Rob Heron, to name somebody, is a songwriter and a brilliant performer. He's now setting up something in Newcastle, which has just got started. So he's now representing other musicians and bands and giving an opportunity in a small space. Yeah. So that's great. Well done to all the people who are doing that. Yeah, village halls seem to be a good place to do things because local communities are happy to come out, I think, since lockdown. Yeah, so communities have become more tightly knit. It's hard, the online thing is difficult to beat. And some people don't want to go there. Yeah. They don't want to do their things online. Well, we're not doing much online from that point of view because we're people persons. Yes. We'd rather get out there and connect with an audience that you can see and feel and hear.
It's my impression that the whole business of online music is evolving very quickly too, because at first there was MySpace where musicians put everything online. I thought it was great, we can share our music and people can get to know us, but then it was kind of hijacked by the streaming platforms when that technology became available, and now it's very difficult, although it's easy for anybody to upload their music, it's very difficult to be heard.
Yes,
because there are so many people doing music and have got it up there. And it seems to me, I should say, this is me on my soapbox, that we have gone full circle now in that we are going back to an era when the record companies were all powerful, but just by a different mechanism, because they appear to be controlling to a large extent what's prominent on the streaming platforms with all their power, and as I understand it, they have deals with the platforms about which music will be prioritised and so on. Just like in the old days, they would decide what was heard on radio because they'd be doing payola, and who would go out on tour because they'd subsidise it and so on.
So if you're not signed up to a record company, what you're saying is you've got no chance.
Well, I'm saying that life is just as difficult as it ever was.
Yes.
And it's kind of difficult for independent performers,
of course it is,
to make themselves heard.
Yeah.
And with, as you say, with the smaller number of venues now,
yeah,
it's harder to break out of your immediate environment.
That's it. And the prospect of doing a new album is huge from a recording, writing and promotion point of view. But it seems you really just need one song at the minute. Maybe just doing a one or two songs is the way forward, just to keep your presence out there. So we've had that conversation just recently, actually. It's difficult. It is difficult.
I've seen advice online again from people in the industry who say, don't bother with EPs, don't bother with albums, because when you put something out on a streaming platform, you get a hit of publicity.
Yep.
So just make it for one song and do it 12 times.
There we go.
Don't do it once with 12 songs.
They don't even have to be connected.
No.
And it's sad, isn't it? But people have such short attention spans these days. It's a different thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
It is sad, but it's kind of we are moving on into something different. So you've got to. Well, you can either go down that line, or you can just please yourselves and carry on doing what you feel is right, and hope that your loyal, customer base will stick with you.
And I have spoken to independent musicians who've been bold enough to put out a CD and paid for it themselves.
Okay.
At a cost of between £3,000 and £8,000.
Really?
Of their own money, and I said to them, well, you think you get it back? They said, no, we're not going to get that back. We almost have to give away our CDs at gigs. But they have a faith, and I don't know if it's just a legacy because they've grown up in an environment where the album was the thing, that was the art form, and they just see that way of presenting their music, or whether they think it's worth the investment to have something physical to give people or sell to people. There's kind of more direct relationship with their audience.
I think it's more about the show, isn't it? The live show now. Well, certainly for the bigger acts, when you go to one of these big concerts, which we don't do very often, but I can't get over how much isn't about the song and the songwriter. It's about the lights and
about the whole thing,
the rest of the stage and the dancers or whatever they bring on. That's just totally unnecessary.
It's an event.
It's an event, and it has to be a spectacle, and oh golly gosh, I could have done without all that.
On a happier note.
Yes.
On a happier note. What plans have you got for 2025?
From a choir point of view, I'm taking the choir to Manchester, so we're moving out of the area, and we're going to hopefully kind of represent the Northeast in a competition. Dark Sky Voices, in a competition down in Manchester, which they're very excited about. So that's going to be something to work towards. I would also like to do some more recording with them, but they don't know that yet, one way or another. I'd maybe like to do more collaborations with them. We've done some lovely choral collaborations with other local choirs this year, with Tyne Valley Voices and a Voicemail, who are based in Morpeth. And we've done something with Catherine Davison's choir from the Hexham Community Choir. So I'm looking for new opportunities for them to collaborate with, maybe with some young choirs, young singers. That'd be good. So yes, onwards and upwards with the Dark Sky Voices. I really want to write more choral music and maybe some piano music. Get a book out there for end of next year. Paul and I need to write some more Landermason music, so that's on the list for things to do. Yeah, make more time for writing and recording. Continue with the teaching, but just maybe not spend so much time. I'm one of these people that spends a huge amount of time doing preparation for whatever I do. I think that's the teacher in me.
That's the teacher in you, yes.
I could spend a whole day preparing for one thing, when actually I need to get my priorities right, and it's just a me thing.
Yeah. Are you a fan of going on retreats and that sort of thing?
Explain what sort of
Going on a
thing?
retreat where you go off into the middle of nowhere where you've got no other distractions, so you
Oh,
can
hey,
just
that sounds
spend
like
your
heaven.
whole time composing.
That sounds like heaven. We went up to the Highlands of Scotland to a croft in April for a week, and Paul took his ukulele, I took a whistle, and we did write something because the weather was so atrocious one day we couldn't get out. So we wrote and recorded something, and that was just like sort of one day. So yeah, if we had a week or 2 weeks, that would be so lovely. We could, we need to do that. It's a good plan. Good plan.
Good. Fiona, thank you very much.
Oh, it's been lovely chatting. Thanks.
Good.
Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now I'm found, was blind, but now I see. Through many dangers, toils and snares, I have already come. 'Tis grace hath brought me, taught me. 'Tis grace hath brought me safe thus far, and grace will lead me home, and grace will lead me home. The Lord has promised good to me, His word my hope secures. He will my shield and portion be, as long as life endures. Yea, when this flesh and heart shall fail, and mortal life shall cease, I shall sing praise. How sweet the sound, a life of joy and peace, life of joy and peace. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now I'm found. Was blind, but now I see. The earth shall soon dissolve like snow, the sun forbear to shine.
Thanks for listening to the Three Tynes podcast. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Please subscribe and tell your friends about it.